to make a brief introduction about the topic, in case we have some people with us today that are not so familiar with the children participation. And I would like to highlight and underline, actually, that children and teenagers are citizen groups largely overlooked in urban planning and decision-making processes in our cities today. And although the Convention on the Rights of the Child have been for many years declared, and I have gathered here in that first slide like a few photos showing how cities are currently trying to prioritize the children's needs and respond to children as equal users of the public spaces and equal users of the cities. And we can see that, for example, Barcelona in the first photo has gradually begun to adopt the Safe Routes to School scheme and the idea of giving space to children in the time that they're going to school and leaving school. So we have a great example of closing down the streets around the school at 8 in the morning in specific segments of the streets, don't get me wrong, so that children have the possibility to actually bike to school or walk safely to school. We also have examples from Paris, as you can see is another photo here, that children are asked to be part of the designing of the space of their schoolyards and have a saying. We have a picture from Leeds in UK, where together with the speed signs, we have drawings from children that are actually advocating and having those quotes trying to convince the adults why they should respect this speed limit. That is actually the law. And we also, back again to an example from Paris, like designing spaces, having in mind the needs of the children, the needs of them, like not what we architects, designers have already in mind, but understanding their needs to be close to nature. And living here also the idea that when we are designing, adapting to the needs of the actual users, we also keep in mind other aspects, such as environmental design, such as how are we responding to climate change and climate adaptation. And all those different aspects, it's important to highlight that also apply to children as well. So we're not designing just for adults, not the only adults are living in the cities. Children are a big part of the city's population. And following a quote from UNICEF, actually, after COP26 that was just recently happened in Glasgow, is that the climate change crisis is actually a children's rights crisis, because we need to work a little bit more. We need to focus and prioritize the life quality for the children that are being raised in cities and their future, because we're shaping their future at this moment. So with no further delay, I would like to introduce our speakers, and I would kindly ask our speakers to keep the time for their presentation so we can receive questions with a Q&A session afterwards. I would suggest that all speakers have their presentation first and we get a group Q&A. And our first speaker is coming from Thessaloniki and is Garyfallia Katsavounidou, who is an assistant professor of urban design and planning at the School of Spatial Planning and Development at the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki. And her presentation will be about participatory processes for the promotion and design of children's safe and independent mobility, lessons from the Safe Routes to School program. So, Philo, I would like to ask you to share your screen. I will stop sharing my screen right now.
Thank you very much, Maria. And thank you for this very inspiring introduction. I think you set the tone, at least for my presentation. I'll try to, share. I have to just push out 2 or 3 more buttons and I'll be okay, I think. Okay.
Looks good.
Okay. I don't have to go through the outline because it will take us time. So let's go directly onto it. You heard the title from Maria. It has to do with safe routes to school. It has to do with children and mobility. But I would like to just to start with what we know already. We know that from experience, the presence of children using the city, its streets and public spaces, is a sure sign of quality. It's a definitive index of how livable, how human-centered a city is. A prerequisite for children to use and be present in a city space is, of course, to be able to move around in the city on their own. And that is why the term children's independent mobility, CIM, is what it refers to. It refers to children's freedom to get about in the city, in their neighborhoods, in their 15-minute cities, safely, actively, and independently, meaning not being driven at the backseat of their parents' car. Therefore, conditions for walking and for biking, which is the only means that children can get around on their own, are extremely important to get to a better environment for children. And most surprisingly, it's also a sustainable way of moving and also a very pleasant and joyful activity for children too. So it kind of combines together a lot of aspects that we need to be careful about when we talk about mobility. That is not just moving from A to B, but it's a much more complex activity. And that is why a plethora of studies from a variety of disciplines has been focusing on the issue of children's mobility lately. For example, in health sciences, research has shown a significant increase in obesity and in obesity-based illnesses. For example, as we see in the map on the upper left, in the USA, there are some states that the percentage of obese children is over 20%. And guess what? It's the more car-centric states that have the higher obesity percentages. Secondly, there is research in child psychology that shows how much independent mobility affects children socially and psychologically. For example, how social skills are cultivated and emotional maturity is achieved. The third aspect has to do with environmental sustainability. Daily trips by car to and from school account for a significant amount of CO2 emissions, while certain practices such as idling, waiting at the perimeter of schools is a major source of air pollution. And last but not least, of course, comes the issue of safety. Being able to use the streets without the danger of getting killed or injured is a basic human right for all pedestrians, including children. So what is the state of affairs regarding children's mobility in Greece? We will start with the safety issue. Children are getting injured or killed in Greek streets while walking almost on a regular basis. Newsfeed is full of such so-called accidents, and I'm using accidents in quotes because they're not accidents, they're actually homicides. One wonders how many such tragic deaths have to happen to make Greek society recognize children's safety as a major problem. Until now, I think it's hugely misrecognized, and it doesn't register in people's consensus that it's a problem to be urgently addressed. In truth, as we see in this table, based on data from statistical authority, Elstat, the severity of the problem is huge. More than 500 children per year are injured or even killed in Greek streets. Albert Camus has written that there is nothing more tragic than the death, the loss of a child, except losing a child to a car accident. Another tragic misconception in Greece is presenting road safety as something that children need to be taught at school, preferably by traffic policemen. This is highly hypocritical from the part of the adult society. At the same moment that city streets are completely unsafe for pedestrians, we put the responsibility of road safety on the shoulders of small children. While we all know that in Greek cities, pedestrians are constantly at risk due to absence of sidewalks, illegally parked cars, lack of pedestrian crossings, and of course, the tragic incompetence and often criminal behavior of drivers towards other users of the streets. And we see here a street in a very central neighborhood in Thessaloniki, how welcome it is for pedestrians, and we can compare it with this Swedish cartoon that shows the same experience, I think. It is no wonder then that studies in many countries around the world show a huge decline in children's independent mobility over the years, in children walking independently in the streets. In the case of the US, for example, while in 1969, 89% of children walked to school every day, in 2009, this dropped to 31%. And similar decline appears in studies in Italy, in Australia, and in Canada, in Hong Kong. Again, we lack data on how children in Greece go to school every day. As said about every research subject, actually, we count what matters. And it seems that children's school travel gets completely unnoticed by academia and by the society alike. So let's repeat why children's everyday travel to school is crucial in so many aspects. We are raising a backseat generation of children who will become inactive, passive adults, linked to their car seats. We are making climate change and air pollution worse by using cars as a means of transportation for such a short daily trip. We strip our kids from the opportunity to have fun and feel active and empowered along the way. And as we said, we are creating even more opportunities for the so-called accidents to happen. Given all that, do we really think that a law on infrastructure is enough to deal with this problem? Because since 2013, Greece has passed a law on how school zones should be retrofitted to become safer. The guidelines include traffic calming measures and signage, redesign of streets in the immediate perimeter of the school, and introduction of a children's movement guide, like the guide for blind people, only in the shape of a caterpillar. To our knowledge, these guidelines have not implemented at all. There are just a few exceptions here and there. The law came with no funding of any sort. It did not prescribe any participatory processes or involvement of the community. It simply dealt with the problem by resorting to technical solutions without taking into account the multiple dimensions, behavioral, social, psychological, that come with it. If Greece is doing it all wrong, and I think it does, what can we learn from other countries? In the 1960s, Denmark and the Netherlands, which today are two countries synonymous with sustainable urban mobility, were at that time very much different. They had very high numbers of children casualties due to traffic. For example, in 1972, 457 pedestrian deaths were children under the age of 15. And then a tragic accident led to a major paradigm shift in Dutch cities. The 6-year-old daughter of the journalist, Vic Langenhoff, was killed while she was going back home from school. And at the aftermath of this tragedy, her father wrote a series of articles entitled Stop the Kindermoord, which means Stop Child Murder. And this became a national sensation. And people took the streets with picket marches and active demonstrations demanding a safe environment for children. And at the same year, 1972, a documentary aired on the Dutch TV and played a crucial role in changing cultural ideas about children. And the documentary was called In the Name of the Children the Pipe, which is a very central area in Amsterdam, and it actually follows a group of junior high students trying to convince adults and authorities, city authorities, to convert the street into a play street. So let's watch a very short excerpt from this movie.
Theo, just to give you a heads up, we have 3
Yes.
minutes.
Okay.
So great, thanks.
Okay, I found it.
Voor die straat doen, dan denk ik wel dat er erg veel mensen zich bij ons aansluiten. Wij hebben de straat bezet om te laten zien dat we een speelstraat willen. Die straat moet afgesloten worden voor altijd. Zo moet je dus een actie voeren. Je moet aan de mensen laten zien dat iets fout is en dat het beter kan. En dan doet de gemeente ook wel mee. Er zijn natuurlijk ook mensen die ons niet willen helpen met de speelstraat. Maar dat zijn er maar heel weinig.
Wagen 8908J1 weghalen alsjeblieft. Anders blijft er niks meer over. Auto's, opgeruimd! Opgeruimd! Auto's, opgeruimd! Auto's, opgeruimd!
Ik heb dit niet naar een vieren afgezet. Voor die straat doen.
So to go back to where we're in the presentation, in the few minutes that are left, okay, do you see the presentation now?
Yes, we can actually see it, but it's not in a slideshow mode.
Okay.
Just 2 minutes, Theo.
Okay.
Great.
Don't
Thank
worry.
you.
I will wrap it up now. What I wanted to pinpoint with this excerpt is to see how children are actually taking action for their own environments without waiting for other people to really tell them what to do. They already know. And this is what happened in the street that we just saw. A few years later, Woonerf was made there, and as it did in many other Dutch cities. And the same philosophy, that's what Safe Routes to School is about, has become a national program in the States, in the Safe Routes to School program. It's based on the 4 E's: education, encouragement, enforcement, and engineering. And the amazing thing is that it doesn't come from top to the local, but it comes from the local community. So the school community is responsible for distributing the funding and for implementing all kinds of projects, from infrastructure to non-infrastructure, for doing evaluations and surveys. So it's the parents and the children who actually do all the evaluation before doing some proposal for a new project around the school. And these are the results after 16 years of the implementation of Safe Routes to School program. Multiple
we can see
benefits.
your slides. If you're changing slides, we cannot see that because you have your PowerPoint shared.
Oh, okay.
But just a conclusion.
Yes.
would be
So I'm
nice,
gonna,
so we can
yes,
get into it.
okay. I'll go straight to the conclusion. So this is what I think the main point that I would like to leave you with is, you do see the presentation now, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So these are the 4 points that I would like to close with. In order to change the situation in Greece, we have, first of all, to have a holistic strategy. And I think the Safe Routes to School program that has been implemented and with great success is a very good program to adapt and bring it to Greek context. The second is that we need to have more research and more data on this very crucial aspect of mobility, children's mobility in specific. We have to make urgent interventions in the cities to make streets safer for everybody, for all pedestrians, including children. And I'm talking about enforcing very strict rules about careless driving, violation of pedestrians' right of way, and so on, clearing the sidewalks from illegal parking. And last but not least, as we saw in the example, that happened almost 50 years ago, we need to trust children and give them agency, especially in terms of what is in their environment, immediate environment. I think they know best than all of us. So that's what I want to leave you with, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Fio. Thank you very much for your very inspiring presentation. You touched upon quite an important issue, especially here in Greece, but in many European countries as well. Maybe Anna could also give us an insight of what's going on in Portugal on this matter, on the matter of traffic safety and how children are actually arriving and leaving schools. And this also has implications to their health, their social skills, and so many other things. So thank you, Fio. And we're going to move on to Sofia, whose presentation I think is also aligns with a topic that we have already touched upon. And Sofia Sepetzi is a PhD candidate at the School of Spatial Planning and Development at the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki. And she will be talking about the research on the possibilities of children and parents' participation in the school transportation planning, and sharing with us the results of a field research in Hortiatis in Thessaloniki in Greece. So Sofia, if you could please share your screen. And please keep the time of the presentation. I just wanted to make sure that all the attendees know that they can post their question in the Q&A tool that you can see on the bottom right of your screens. So you have any questions, please write them down there and we can take them after all the presentations. Thank you. Sofia?
Okay, can you see my presentation?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Good evening from Thessaloniki. I am working on a PhD about children's geographies, in particular about the social, economical, and environmental factors that affect the travel from school to home. The crucial point of the research was the recording of the children's opinions. Children are unable to record the children are unable to influence decision-making and management, which typically determine the structure of environmentals in general and land uses in particular. Thus, the environments which have the greatest significance for children are decided for them by adults and reflect values which pay scant regard to their needs, aspirations, and behavior. The research was based on the routine of Safe Routes to School organization. Ms. Katsavounidou had already explained the basic idea of this project. They support that there are many benefits from active school travel. I will refer on 4 basic points. Walking or biking to school makes children more alert and ready to face the school day than if they had arrived in a car. Children who walk develop road safety awareness and are less vulnerable than when they walk independently. children who walk or bike to school have better spatial awareness and more road sense than children who are driven to school. Motorists are less likely to collide with pedestrians if more people walk or bike. According to the international literature, children who are systematically travel by car are more likely to negative attitude towards active transport as adults. The adoption of policies that enhance walking, cycling, skating, etc. during adolescence may lead to habits that are maintained throughout the period of adulthood. The aim of the research was to find issues that prevent children from walking or traveling to school. In order to achieve it, I used personal interviews and questionnaires based on the Safe Route to School questionnaires. The questionnaires were answered only by the parents, but I interviewed both parents and children. From the 11 children which participated in the research, 5 studied in the primary school and 6 in the junior high school. My basic concern was to find ways to communicate with the research subjects, to communicate with children. I truly believe that it's time to strengthen, to build children participation in order to have mature citizens in our communities. After all, the Convention of the Rights of the Children from 1992 insists on facing children as equal members of our society. However, the idea of children as claimers to participation is different from the idea of children as social actors in everyday life. The children's participation processes that concerns them is crucial for their future democratic perspective. Furthermore, it's much more possible for children to adopt new habits if those are related to design they have actively participated in, and on the same time, research is much more possible to propose solutions easily accepted by the community if it includes parts of the community's suggestions. Hortiatis is located 20 kilometers away from Thessaloniki, inhabited by 5,000 residents. The primary school is based in a rural area, 1,200 meters from the village. Here is the primary school, and this is the village. I must mention that the primary school is based in an area with no infrastructure. There are no sidewalks, no bicycle line, no public transportation, no lights. Also, there are some stray dogs in the area. You can see the photos of the place. The junior high school is located in the center of the village with easy foot access for the students. The 11 students who took place in the research lived between 1,200 and 3,000 meters from their school. All of them arrived at school either with family private car nor with school buses. Only 2 students chose to return home on foot. The main finding of the research is the total absence of active school travel culture. The fact that none of the students goes to school on foot highlights this finding. In the questionnaires, there was a question about parents' intention to allow their children to walk to school. Despite the fact that their children were driven to school, they were willing to allow them to walk to school. This willingness was recorded both on the interviews and the questionnaires. The parents were also asked about the reasons that prevent them from active school travel. The basic reasons that they referred on was the absence of sidewalks, the heavy school bags, and the stray dogs. The weather, despite the fact that Hortiatis is a semi-mountain area with low winter temperatures, wasn't mentioned as a problem. The primary school children didn't mention any problem. For them, the best way to go to school is cycling and the worst by car. The school bus is a neutral solution for them. The only reason they don't make it happen is because their parents don't allow them. At this point, I must note that my questions weren't oriented in biking because of the lack of appropriate infrastructure. The questions were about walking, but the children insist on referring biking. In the next picture, I will show you the everyday mess during the morning attendance in school. A view from the primary school morning attendance. You can see a lot of cars in the area. And another view from the same school. And the view from the junior high school. The circumstances are better there. So, the study has shown how the school journeys of young children and teenagers are affected by complex intersection of factors, including the built environment and the personal needs. I try to see the ways in which children desire to travel with and their views on why they are often unable to realize these desires. The research revealed that many children desire to travel independently, but are constrained by their parents. At the same time, the research revealed some reasons that make the parents cautious about walking to school. We should understand that child-friendly cities are better cities for children and adults. So we must work on building child-friendliest cities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sofia. That has been very inspiring, and as I said, it's very interesting that your presentation comes after Philio's presentation. Philio has framed the issue and the problem that we're facing here in Greece, but as I previously said, I think it's also an issue that many European cities are facing at the moment. And now you showed us how we can actually involve the children and their parents into understanding the problem, like having tools to actually understand what the problem is before we move on to involving the children to actually co-design. So I think this is something we can also discuss in the later, after all the presentations, that it's important that when we're talking about children's participation, it's about participation from the beginning, from identifying, assessing the problem, understanding what the issue is, and then moving towards designing together. So, but we can come back to this topic later on. And Sofia, I would ask you to stop sharing your screen so that we can move on to our next speaker, who is going to be Ellie, who is actually joining us from Serafio. This is great. And
I'm trying to stop sharing.
You can see, I think you can see an indication on the top of your screen, a red indication which says stop sharing.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect, perfect. So Ellie, we have Ellie Petridi, who is an architect. She's also joining the interdisciplinary postgraduate program called Research in Architecture, Architectural Design, Space and Culture at the National Technical University of Athens. And she will be talking today about school space as a common ground, manual for participatory practices. So we're moving from the streets and the public spaces towards more to architecture now. And I think it's about the schoolyard or the school in general. You're gonna tell us more details. So Ellie,
thank you, Maria. I will get it into detail. Let me share my screen. I believe you can see it now.
Yes, we can see it, and you can, yeah, that is
okay. You see the full slide.
We can see the full slide.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
So, good afternoon, everyone. In this presentation, by the title School Space as Common Ground Manual for Participatory Practices, I will attempt to outline the steps of a participatory practice when designing with teenagers. drawing on my experiences from my diploma thesis supervised by my professor Giorgos Mitroulias. The objective of this research was the design of architectural interventions in a school space, in particular Τρίτο Γενικό Λυκείο Ηλίου, the third high school of Ilion, through participatory processes. The aim was to support new educational and also programmatic conditions for the school space. But this whole research, which is depicted in this diagram, you see, included many steps, from which today I will only focus on the participatory process, highlighted by these blue circles. I put in this slide this diagram in order to illustrate how participatory design is a phase during the design process and not a single aspect of it. So these are some pictures of the school. The building was designed and built during the 1970s within the framework of a central design, a unified central design by the School Buildings Organization. And as it is recorded in official documents, the school was built based on plans from another school in the wider area. So we trace a standard procedure of how we build school buildings. But on the other side, when I first visited the school, I traced what I call these indexes of care. For example, we have the photos of students from previous years displayed on the walls as a special yearbook. And also we have these flowers and plants planted by the users themselves, lots of them brought to the school by their trips abroad. And we have this self-constructed furniture used by visitors as a waiting area, but also from the students during breaks. And visually, we have traced this elaborate effort to mark and number the classrooms, and also these laminated prints of schematic plans produced by the users on each floor. I decided to mention these observations in the beginning of my presentation as an introduction, in order to highlight the link I propose between participation and the concept of care. Care for the space can be detected by analyzing the messages emitted by the authorities about whether they care for the citizens or the users of a public building or not. But also by analyzing the ways citizens or users take care of their surroundings. And that is what this slide is about. And care as approached in my current research after this diploma project may also relate to the design strategies that architects and designers collectives use our choices regarding to the inclusive production of space can lead to implementing participatory practices. So my concern in this presentation is also methodological, because I believe we need to be more open about how we do participation. And this is what this presentation is about. Participatory design is, of course, a field that is still being explored in terms of scale and implementation. And mainly in the context in which it can take place with productive and fruitful results. So the tools needed to implement participatory design often need to be invented. We still have a lot of work to do in this aspect. As I said, the presentation focuses on how we do participation, and the workshops I will present in the next slides are presented in three phases. The first one is the preparatory phase, where we need to design a toolbox in order to construct a participatory workshop. And then there's the implementation phase where we design a process in order to have the best outcome we can have. And then in the third phase, we analyze what the outcome is, and we review the material in order to design interventions. So moving on to the particular examples, the first workshop I will present is about mapping the flow around the school. In this workshop, I invited a larger group of people to participate freely. This topographic model, printed and glued on cardboard, was placed in the entrance of the school. We also had markers and these indicators or flags, which illustrated the favorite place, interesting place, residence, and crossing. They were placed beside the map, and people passing by, students, teachers, other staff of the school, could highlight the routes they take to reach the school every day. The red and the pink markers are about going to the school by car, and the blue and the green ones are about approaching the school on foot. What I came after analyzing the outcome of the workshop was this diagram over in the right side of the slide, where we traced which are the main routes the students use. Also, the school has two entrances, and it was clear that the one was the major one and the other one was the secondary one. And then we also had some results about where the spots from where they cross the main road next to the school, because this was one of my main concerns. I refer to that to mention the presentations we saw earlier and how crucial that is for a school area. Moving on, the next workshop, sorry. In the next workshop, I worked with a smaller group of 4 teachers and 16 students. The brief I gave them was for the participants to create a collage based on photos of the school environment. These are the photos, and they used some clippings from magazines, etc. To maybe present to us a favorite spot of theirs, or describe a problem. It was free to, the subject was free. And also interaction between the users was encouraged, because we tried to trace the narratives through disagreement or through consensus, the narratives that would give us a glimpse of how the everyday life in the school unfolds every day. So I presented the toolbox. In every toolbox, there is also this workshop presentation brochure that had the main guidelines. And then we had in our hands 20 different collages. It would be interesting to show all of them, but unfortunately, it is not possible. They were very apt in a straightforward way. For example, this one illustrates how the feeling of cold during the winter months in the corridors of the school, or this one which was a comment on the decoration of the intermediate spaces. What I also wanted to stress was the fact that in every collage that depicted the exterior of the school, greenery and flowers were added. There was not even one that didn't have extra green. And then the third phase, when I analyzed what the pictures showed, I made these diagrams. The first one is about the identity of the subjects depicted in the pictures, and the vast majority were students. and then fewer teachers, and also some of the unofficial pets of the school. And then the second diagram is about the frequency of occurrence of different spaces. Most of the pictures were about the courtyard, but we also had a lot about the corridors and the teacher's office. The third one, which I found the most interesting one, is about the postures, the body positions observed in the different pictures. The amount of people depicted standing was twice the number of people depicted sitting. And I should note in this point that the number of the seated was so high because we had two crowded scenes from the teacher's office. The lack of freedom of choice regarding the postures was more than obvious in these pictures. And also, no other posture was ever depicted in any of them.
Ellie, just to give you a heads up, like 2 minutes are left.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And then this workshop was aimed to start a dialogue about the functional add-ons we could use for the empty spaces. So we had these area maps, 6 different areas, and these unique units that had to go in every area. The students worked in 6 different groups. And here in this picture, you can see how what the model of the students produced was translated into architectural design in the final model of the proposal. Last but not least, in this final workshop I will present, we worked on the boundary between the classrooms and the corridor, where 4 different modules that were designed. 3 of them had designated functions: the entrance of the classroom, the storage unit, the seating, and the 4th one was free for the participants to interpret. And they used them in sequences or separately. And then, based on the observations and the diagrammatic redesign of the models, I finally designed this furniture for the corridors, which could be used in the ways that I saw in the students' models. In conclusion, despite not getting into much detail, I hope that I illustrated the steps of the participatory process. And at the same time, I seek the relationship between doing and learning very much. And I always wondered if workshops could be an educational tool as well as an architectural tool. And the words of the teachers at the end of the last workshop were a testimony to this view, because I quote, when I thanked them for welcoming me and my research so warmly in their school, their answer was, thank you for showing us that there are other possible ways to approach the students and talk about our common problems and visions in order to set up a common ground. And with this last remark, I want to thank you now.
That's really great, Ellie. Thank you very much for your presentation and the powerful quote, actually, that you just shared with us. This is true. This is very interesting that design and architecture and all those workshops, besides giving the opportunity to give voice to the users and especially the children that we're talking about, it's also an educational tool through experiential play, through experience, that they can touch upon different topics, the teachers as well. So thank you very much, and for showing us all those different methods that you applied in those workshops. And we can move to our last speaker, who is coming from Portugal, from Lisbon, Ana Catarina Graça. So Anna is a PhD researcher at the University Institute of Lisbon in Portugal, and she will be talking about toolkits for children to make decisions about public spaces, which I think it aligns really well with Ellie's presentation. And Anna, we're looking forward to hear your findings and insights as well. If you could please turn on your microphone and share your screen.
Thank you, Maria. I will share my screen. Can you see the presentation?
I think we should give it just a few seconds. It's probably loading because we can see a black screen right now.
Okay.
Or is it, yeah. Is it just
Yes,
me?
I can see.
No,
can't...
it's actually black screen right now.
Okay, let's, something's happening. Okay, great. You can put the full screen on and
Yes.
we're set to go.
Can you see the presentation?
I think it turned black again.
Yes.
But now maybe you can keep it in the mode that you already had it as a PDF. We can perfectly see it right now.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you all. Thank you to all for being able to show the work I have been developing in recent years. The title of the presentation I will make today is Toolkits for Children to Make Decisions About Public Space. That is inserted in my PhD. In this presentation, the goal is to present tools that were used for children to participate in the design of public space in clandestine neighborhoods. The PhD is titled Urban Areas of Illegal Eugenicity, Reliving to Reintegrate Micro-Practices for Requalification of the Public Space. I will present the investigation very quickly, where this presentation is inserted, being part of the practical parts. The 4 big topics addressed in research: urban areas of illegal eugenicity, public space, participatory process, and children. Intervention strategies in the public space have launched new challenge to research in the architecture, in the making society, with strong participatory and collaborative citizenship. Public space assumes again an important role in the urban practice. From the direct observation of the absences of public space in the urban areas of the illegal eugenicity in the metropolitan area of Lisbon, the research question is how public space make urban areas of illegal eugenicity is reliving to reintegrate it in metropolitan areas of Lisbon dynamics. Having several goals, which the general goal is develop a strategy for the qualification of the public space in the urban areas of illegal eugenicity through participatory process with children. The hypothesis is place reliving public space to reinforce identity and social cohesion in the urban areas of illegal eugenicity, as well as reintegrate these territories into the metropolitan dynamics to the extent that they manage to create memories and sociabilities, relations between the community and the others. It was a methodology that analyzed 3 scales: territory scales, neighborhood scales, and the public space scale. I will show the mapping over the years. In Portugal, in the 60s, a housing alternative is developed, cross-cutting the entry Portuguese territory on the margin of the formal market in the rural areas on the periphery of Lisbon, following the attractions process exercised by urban centers regarding to rural every month. This phenomenon reaches a large dimensions, especially in the metropolitan area of Lisbon, with the creation of multiple clandestine neighborhoods. The toolkits that will be shown were applied in the municipality of Cascais, where all the clandestine neighborhoods in this municipality are represented. Currently, there are 131 urban areas of illegal genocide in the municipality of Cascais. In the 70 years, Giancarlo Descartes defended an architecture against rooted conservative methods. What was looked for in the participatory architecture was an approach that involves the project future, taking into account their needs and desires. In this process, focus on children as main actors, looking at the different levels of participation in the project art later. I will conceptualize what is a toolkit. A toolkit in participation represents a set of tools that allow anyone to collaborate in the creation process by manipulation physical elements in the two and or three dimensions. The tools and the instructions, including the toolkits used, depend on the goal and context of the exercise. The result of participatory process derived from the participant is use of the toolkits. There are several types of toolkits. For example, emotion toolkits allow participants to produce elements for feelings and emotions. Other example, models toolkits 3D allow manipulation and simulation. This presentation is insert was referred to before in my PhD. I will show now what the whole process was organized for the creation of my toolkits for the participation of the children. The toolkits is theme participate, your idea, your place, neighborhood, cabeça morbe. Divide into 4 phases: look, imagine, plan, and create. The place of action for the application of the toolkits is in the urban areas of illegal genocide, neighborhood Cabeça de Morbi, in the municipality Cascais. The laboratory methodology is divided into 4 phases, with several tools being built according to the children's age. In this phase, look to insert adults. In the phase of looking, it starts with a walking of observation where children explore the neighborhood. I create 2-3 toolkits to look phase. This participation kit for children between 3 and 4 years old computes 1 reflection exercise. And this exercise, the intent to know the wish and dreams of children for these 2 places in the neighborhood, Riverside Suicides and Community Center. If they don't have the icons, they can draw on the 2 white cars. The participation kit for children between 5 and 12 years old is composed for 2 exercises. 1 exercise, a reflection, and a creative exercise. In a reflection exercise, it is important that children draw or write what they see on their route from home to school. and creative exercise, the intent to know the wish and dreams of children for the neighborhood. The participation kit for young people between 30 and 18 years and adults aims at through reflection, young people and adults look at neighborhoods and identify the problems and the potential of the place and what space they would like to see transformed in the neighborhood. Where children used to look kits, remember that which shield was 2 white cards where they drew which needs that they would like to see in the neighborhood. This participation kit for youth between 30 and 18 years and adult compose a reflection exercise, and this is intent to identify one space that with a pleasant space, a space for sitting, a space where they were not new, and a space to transform through the indication with pins corresponding to each action. A series of words to evaluate or thinks a place according to 4 criteria is also available in this exercise. According to the project for public space, where it is 6 space words they would like to see reflect in the neighborhood. A post-it set is also available to indicate solutions, wish and dreams that way would like to see fulfilled in the neighborhood, and 3 questions about the place. What do you like about this place? What don't you like about this place? And what needs to be improved? The goals of the look activities is to include children, youth and adults for the urban development of the neighborhood through reflection and creative, making them more aware of what is happening around them, what the needs, perception, their expectations were reflecting on the public space. Let's now see kits development for Imagine, where tools were used to select and mark.
Anna, I'm sorry for interrupting you. We have 2 minutes. If you can
Okay.
wrap up. Thank you very much.
This participation kit for children between 3 and 4 years old intends that children through identify of 4 favorite games may organize the games in the public space using the model through the marking of the games in spaces. Children put the games on the model. The participation kit for children between 5 and 12 years old intend that children through the icon select in the looking face can display the icons in the public space using the model. The children add their choice on the model. And this kit composes of 1 imagination exercise. In this imagination exercise, the intent to know where the children all placed icons in the public space of neighborhoods. The goals of imagine activities to get children and young people to think and make decisions about activities that occur in the public space and what is the best place in the public space for them. Let's now see the kids' development to make the proposal, where the tool use it to view. The goal of planning activities to get children and young people to think and make decisions about equipment or activities that occur in the public space, and wish the best place in the public space for these activities can be possible case of the model. The last phase of the methodology create is the create phase, where is it tend to implement some of children's ideas. This participation kits for children between 3 and 4 years intend that children can play the games in the public space using the various kits through the marking deployment of the games. where it represents the kit to build walkways in the neighborhood and children apply the same kits. At the end of the creative activity, it is intended to gather the participation so that they can build on or more temporary or permanent kit in the public space of the neighborhoods. Returning to research thesis, PhD, the general contribution is to promote a generic model of good practice to any process of urban space requalification of urban areas illegally genesis. Thank you all for your attention.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you very much for your presentation and for showing us all those different ways that you can try different tools to engage and also extract, if I may say, the information, valuable information from children on this very important and interesting process of co-designing together. And it's quite interesting that you showed us the different tools according to the ages. And this is also something to keep in mind as designers, that the way we're trying to approach users in participatory processes, it's important to understand the language and the tools that we use. So we do have a question at the Q&A and from Zoom audience, but also I know that we have a question from the room at Serafio. So Sylvain, if you can hear us, Ellie, you can briefly help us with this.
Sorry, just something. The question from Serafio and the one in the Q&A is the same one.
Okay, great. So we can move on with this question. So and it goes to Sofia, actually, which is about the project in Hortiatis. And she's asking, Elena is asking, why did you choose such a small sample of Hortiatis students for your case study? If you could please answer this.
Yes, of course I can. This was a preliminary research which takes place in May. That means during quarantine in Greece. So we have this little number of students to investigate if the questionnaire is appropriate for this place, the questionnaire of the SR2S, Safe Routes to School. My plan is to investigate the total of the two schools. This means about 300 students for the preliminary school and 200 for the junior high school.
Great. And as a follow-up to that, are you planning to do this to other schools as well after you had this first findings?
I'm planning to do this at 6 schools in total, 6 schools. 3 in the 3 preliminary and 3 junior high schools in different areas of Thessaloniki, West Thessaloniki and East Thessaloniki.
Okay, and I think this is a general question that I have for the 3 presenters that we heard today talking about tools and methods for participation. But Sofia, maybe we can begin with you and then move forward to Ellie and Anna. So you have those tools, you're harvesting the data and the information, and then you have those findings, which is on the one hand is really important to have them so that we can frame the issue and we can get those guidelines on how to respond to the problem or design together with children. But how do you see this being standardized or being used by the stakeholders who are actually responsible of implementing interventions? And for example, about safe routes to school, we're talking about municipalities and the transportation network. And for the schools themselves, we're talking about the school administration and also municipality as well. How do you see this connection? Like, how do you deliver from the findings to the municipalities so we can actually have results and have the ideas of the children being integrated to the actual design? Thank you.
I haven't speak with the municipalities till now, but I have speak with the students, their parents, the school teachers, and the region of Central Macedonia, which plans the school journey, and they are all they wait for a solution to have better school travels. In the Central Macedonia, in the region of Central Macedonia, this cost about 15 million per year. So they will be happy to find ways to promote children to walk to school and not to take the school buses. And the children, as I had already said, prefer to walk to school or bike to school than to go to school by car. So everyone is ready to new solutions.
Everyone is ready, but maybe we don't have the framework yet. I understand that's probably something that we're missing. So maybe, thank you, Sofia. Ellie, you can also respond to this, how you see those findings being integrated to the design of the school in the end.
Of course. Thank you very much for the question, because this is the part that is always missing, because we need to talk about all this methodological or the parts about the toolkits, but we never talk about how the framework isn't there. If a participation doesn't get institutionalized in the core of how we make policies, we cannot proceed in any or in very few cases, because what was the problem with my project, for example, the problem, if I can use that word, was the fact that it was a research project coming from the university. I managed to have the permission from the Ministry of Education to get into the school, which was a whole process by itself. But then you don't have any clue as to where to ask for the implementation, the actual implementation of the of building these architectural interventions, even if they were minimum, even if they followed the guidelines, which are also very strict. There is this very solid and very strict boundary as to what you can actually achieve. It's different when it comes from the school, where you can actually ask for stuff by from the municipality or the region. But then you cannot collaborate with any designers that come from outside. This is the problem. You cannot work with people that are not part of the municipality as it is, and collaborations are very difficult in terms of the framework. This is the problem, that you cannot actually do it.
Yeah,
that was my experience.
Well, we will find the way. We will find the way. That's why we're having those meetings. But let's see what Anna has to say. What's the condition in Portugal? Actually, do you have? Is there an easier way to get through institutionalizing those changes and having the municipality your collaborator in this effort? Anna?
Yes, the implemented kits with sports municipality, Cascais. It was even the municipality which indicates priority clandestine neighbors to interview. These children were the public that must join the action. Is the principality. Can sport municipality Cascais indicate the children is the public principality to interview these clandestine neighbors, for neighbors to interview these kids.
So you mean that this municipality you have been working with has it already as a priority to work with kids? They do understand that the public are the children, and
Yes.
they're prioritizing. This is great, and I think it's also important that in the end of your presentation you also linked the children's participation to the SDGs, which shows us something that also Sofia touched upon, that if we create child-friendly cities, it's going to be friendlier for everyone, like for all of us as users of the city. So thank you, Anna. And if we don't have any other questions from the Q&A, I can pose a question to Philio, who actually began our session and put it out there, identified and framed the problem, the policy as well, touched upon the lack of infrastructure that we have. You made a few points in the end, Philio, that where we need a holistic strategy, we need more data, which is very important, and we need urgent interventions in the city. How do you see this becoming a policy? Like, I know personally, because we know each other, that you have been part of the local administration as well. So do you see there any opportunity now from the academic perspective that how we can shape a policy that actually leverages all the findings from academia, from practitioners? Could you share your insights on this?
Thanks for the question, Maria. Well, I think the answer would not be point to a specific, person or a direction. I think it has to come from several points of view and go together and accumulate in something bigger. So, for example, for the holistic strategy, the Safe Routes to School program is a federal budget program. And that's what I tried to pinpoint in my presentation, that in Greece, there was the law in 2013 that provided, the technical guidelines for municipalities. However, it didn't come together with anything else. So there was just the law. There was no funding for the municipalities, no obligation for implementing the new design. And as I said, there was no involvement of the local community. So from the national point of view, I think clearly an adaptation of a national program with the traits of the Safe Routes to School program would be a very, Pandora's box opening. For this to happen, we have to have political leverage, I think. So this issue has to go to our members of the parliament, to ministers, to this point of national governance, to actually put together this strategy and implement such a national-wide program. But on the other hand, we have to have bottom-up movements too. So part of what Sofia is doing in Hortiatis is exactly that, to make the local community aware of the problem, because as we know, people who are inside an environment, when they observe the environment, they have a very much clearer idea of what to do than anything designed in someone's office. So without the local community, I don't think any national program will go through. So there has to be from several points, and from the academia too. I think there is a huge blank spot there regarding children in general in Greece, and children's mobility even more. There is transport planning about everything, and transport plans and κυκλοφοριακά σχέδια, transport plans, yes. But the issue of children is never taken into account, and that's what I said when I said we count what matters for us. So to sum it all together, I think there has to be a synergy from the national level to the local level, from the academics, from civil society too, because I didn't mention another part that I have been involved. There is a national organization of parents and relatives of victims of pedestrian accidents. It's called SOS crimes in the street, SOS εγκλήματα στο δρόμο, τροχαία εγκλήματα, and they have a voice too, but this is such a unrecognized problem. That's part of the problem, that the public opinion is just all this information that comes in every day or every other day about car accidents, about deaths on the street. It just doesn't register, I think. And we have to be much more vocal about it and create this kind of synergy that I just tried to describe.
I think we all here in the audience as well, in the panel as well, we totally agree with you, Filio, that this is a topic that's being not discussed really much as it should have been. And we see that lack and the gap in the policies. And I think it's important what you highlighted, that we need to find ourselves in the middle. Like, we totally need the bottom-up approach. We need the people who are really interested and eager to work towards that. And it's about the parents who care about their children, for a better future for their children, and help the authorities, local, regional, or national, understand why they need to shape this policy. So we need to have a multi-level collaboration, which takes time, and it's a long-term effort, but at the same time, it's really urgent right now to work towards this. And I think that those discussions among people who are working on this topic are very important and interesting, so that we are forming a community, like exchanging our experiences and sharing the findings, so that we can actually make this issue more heard. And I would strongly encourage you all, if you would like to maybe share your email in the chat box, that maybe we can create this community in Greece or outside Greece as well, that we can join forces and work together on trying to kick off this change, if we may say this, because we need to talk a little more about children, and we need to talk more about their equal rights as users of the city. I'm being very conscious about time, because the next session needs to get started. We have a last question from Eleni Panou, which is from Thessaloniki, that probably it can actually help us take a step further with Sofia and Filio, your research, and maybe you can find the schools who are interested to join you in your research. So we will put you in touch. I would like to thank you, all the speakers, for these very inspiring presentations, and also your findings, sharing your experiences. I hope that this is not the last time that we meet each other. Also the people in the audience as well, who I know that probably are also working on child-friendly projects too. So I would like to wish you a nice evening. Thank you very much for joining us today, and encourage you to stay longer in the rest of the conference, for the rest of the sessions. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Maria.
Thank you.
Good
Bye-bye.
evening.